This math shows some insultingly bad value for a new CPU that just launched, but we've got other stuff to talk about today as well, like some PlayStation 5 Pro rumors talking about not only performance numbers, but actually a sheet that looks pretty dang legit talking about PlayStation's new upscaling technology that uses machine learning, and PlayStations run on AMD hardware, right? So is this actually the new machine learning on gaming devices that AMD was talking about, rather than an update to FSR? We'll dive into that, as well as some game updates, some sales, all sorts of things. But let's go ahead and actually pull back into what am I saying is such a bad value here. So did you know that 689 divided by 545 is 1.26-ish, which means that 689 is 26% more than 545. Now, why does that matter? And why does it also matter that 689 divided by 356 is 1.934-ish? In other words, almost twice as much. Well, because this is the price of the new Intel CPU compared with its closest competitors, the own previous highest-end Intel CPU and AMD's best gaming CPU, the 7800X3D. And if the performance increased by 26% over the previous best Intel CPU, or was twice as fast as the AMD gaming CPU, then that would be good. But it's nowhere near those things. So what do we have? Basically, we have Intel launching the Core i9 14900KS. And if you're like, didn't we already have that? No, we had the 14900K. The S at the end indicates that this is a binned chip that's basically exactly the same thing, but it's been binned to be able to clock better. Which means the only interest anyone should have in this is for extreme overclockers to get a chip that is already pre-binned. Other than that, you should not buy this, okay? So let me back that up by saying if you ignore Intel's graphs and go to actual, independent third-party reviewers like Tom's Hardware. I just flashbanged you. I usually warn you for that. Sorry. Anyway, and also Tech Power Up, who also likes to flashbang you with the white background. We can look at some performance numbers here, and again, I'm looking at these two reviews. They're good, but also there's not a lot of reviews out there day one. A lot of times we would see major, YouTube reviews on products like this, and I'm not seeing that. So I'm not sure if there was just less interest in testing it from reviewers or if there were fewer samples sent out. I don't get CPU review samples because I focus on GPU reviews on my channel. I don't have time, honestly, to do CPU reviews as well. But let's take a look here. So if you set the 14900KS at a 100% baseline, and this is from Tech Power Up's result, then the 7800X3D is still almost 6% faster in their test suite of games. Now, if you use different games, you might get different results. Why are we at 720p? Because you're removing a GPU bottleneck. If you move up resolutions, you can then see different, different results. You can look at it game by game. But the point is, they review a lot of games. And if we remove the GPU as much from the equation as possible, we're seeing AMD is still ahead by 6% in their test suite. And the 14900K, which we already had, is reaching 98.7% of the performance, meaning we are only losing 1.3% of the performance if you of the 14900KS if you instead choose to go with the 14900K. Now, what are we seeing from other review outlets? Well, Tom's Hardware also has a review. And if we scroll down to their 1080p test suite average, we can see that the 7800X3D is winning against the 14900KS, and it's actually pretty significantly so. Now, if you go ahead and stick in faster memory, it gets a little bit closer, but it is still behind. And the 7800X3D is ahead, and there is hardly any difference between the 14900K and the 14900KS. Now, So back to this slide, what we're basically saying is for basically the same performance as a 14900K, you can pay 26% more money. Or you can pay almost double the price of a 7800X3D to get less gaming performance. Now, to be clear, if you're doing a productivity application that can fully utilize all of the cores and efficiency cores and all of that, and probably doesn't benefit as much from the 3D V-Cache, then the 14900KS would be faster than the 7800X3D, but I'm talking about for gaming, right? So for gaming situations, it does not make any sense from any sort of value proposition to buy the 14900KS, nor does it make a sense from just an overall performance perspective, since it is still, on average, slower than the 7800X3D. Also, it's drawing even more power than the 14900K already was, although one advantage to having the binned silicon is you could probably, it's probably more power efficient because it's better bin. So if you did want to power limit it, you would probably maintain most of the performance while becoming much more power efficient than it currently is out of the box. But yeah, anyway. And I also thought, again, it was interesting that even when overclocking, Tech PowerUp was not able to beat the gaming performance of the 7800X3D, even with this, binned chip and all of that. So that's a pretty rough situation. And if you're curious where I was getting my current pricing for the 7800X3D, I'm looking at the lowest price currently available. If I check PC Part Picker, that's why I've got $356 on that. And the 14900K, I looked at $545. And the $689 price tag is what is showing up in the RCP US dollar pricing on Intel's official slides for that. So anyway, long story short, I don't recommend buying the 14900KS unless you are a competitive overclocker. So there you go. Let's get to what I think is a more exciting and interesting thing, which is the PlayStation 5 Pro will offer 45% faster rendering and up to 3 times the ray tracing performance than the base model with Spectral Super Resolution. That's the machine learning trained upscaling to support up to 8K. Now, I will say up to 8K is in the future. It looks like it's currently only listed at 4K resolution. So that's a headline from WCCF Tech. Videocards.com has a similar headline. Sony PS5 Pro teased with PSSR, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution support. Now, both of these, I tracked down their source, and the source is Moore's Law is Dead on YouTube, who is known for leaks and things like that for a variety of PC hardware, and oftentimes also could be console hardware as well. Now, how much stock do you put into leaks? Well, when you're actually showing leaked documents that look legit, that certainly, at least in my opinion, ups the, okay, let's actually spend some time on this and see what we've got. So this looks very, very interesting here. So this is, again, apparently a leaked document talking about PSSR, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, which, okay, well, what do we got here? Well, it looks like the machine learning, so it's focusing on machine learning trained upscaling, and the machine learning capabilities of the PS5 Pro GPU here are listed at 8-bit integer focused at 300 tops and 67 T-flops of 16-bit floating point, access through libraries, blah, blah, blah. So we've got some increased machine learning capabilities of the PS5 Pro. So what are they going to do with it? Well, it looks like one big thing is PSSR, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. It looks like this can also be referred to as MFSR, Multi-Frame Super Resolution. And it's also sometimes referred to as PSML, which would be, oh, well, sorry, that's not referred to as PSML. It's using PlayStation Machine Learning, PSML, to do this. So it's definitely a machine learning trained algorithm, and it is a multi-frame super resolution technology. In other words, it is a temporal upscaling technique. If you look at down here, it says PSSR is a machine learning enhanced version of temporal anti-aliasing upscaling, sort of like DLSS and XeSS. FSR2 also is a temporal anti-aliasing upscaler, but does not have a machine learning trained algorithm. It is a human designed algorithm. So what does all of that mean? So all of these technologies basically take frame data from previous frames. That's the temporal aspect of it. You're taking previous frame data, and you can use that to help inform the current frame to have more detail than what is available in the current frame. So you can render your current frame at a lower resolution than the output image you're trying to produce, and then it can, make it look, higher resolution than it is, again, by using the information from previous frames, thus temporal. Now, so the idea here is it would be a replacement for a game's existing TAA upscaling, TAA anti-aliasing or upsampling. So in other words, it should be able to work as like, DLAA does or native FSR does. Which is you can use it as a good anti-aliasing technique, or if you're rendering the game below the output resolution, it could then be used to upsample the image. And it says the inputs are quite similar to DLSS or FSR, and it would have HDR support. So, and it would have dynamic input resolution support, which is very important for consoles, because consoles are generally trying to hit a fixed frame rate output, and what they vary is the rendering resolution. And in a lot of current console games, the internal resolution can get way too low for FSR to look good, especially when you're looking at 60 FPS performance modes. There's a lot of games, especially games like looking at Unreal Engine 5, but even some others, that will drop to 720p internal resolution or even less, and then to try to hit those 60 FPS targets. And that's not giving algorithms like FSR a lot to work with. So if you have a PS5 Pro, you'll not only probably be able to have a higher internal resolution in the first place, but have a machine learning trained algorithm in order to do that. Now, obviously, there would be a frame time cost for these upsampling techniques. So does DLSS, so does FSR2. So in other words, rendering at 1080p resolution internally to try to output a 4K resolution, so that would be 4K performance mode upscaling if you use the words we usually use with DLSS and FSR, that would have a 2 millisecond performance cost. So in other words, compared to running at 1080p and outputting 1080p, it would cost an additional 2 milliseconds to upscale using this technique to 4K, but they say that optimization is still ongoing, and they may see a reduction in running time in the future, meaning it could get faster, enabling the upscaling at a higher frame rate because it's costing less frame time. Also saying it requires roughly 250 megabytes of memory to perform the upscaling. So, and one of the big deals here is similar to DLSS and XeSS, it's not a per-game trained algorithm. It's pre-trained graph parameters. So in other words, you don't need to train it by game. You need to input it game by game. But again, they're saying it takes inputs that are quite similar to DLSS or FSR inputs. So if a game is already able to support DLSS and FSR, it sounds like it shouldn't be too hard to just slot those same inputs into this process to then get your upscaling technology up and running using stuff that a lot of games would already be supporting. So basically, the only reason you would be excited about this is if it is better quality than FSR2, because right now consoles are having to rely on FSR2 upscaling or some other techniques, like you do have TSR in Unreal Engine games, and some game developers have their own versions of a temporal anti-aliasing upscaler. Now, this screenshot, you can't really make much out of it because in order to protect his sources, Moore's Law is Dead is kind of garbling and degrading the images so that if there was any, unique identifying elements to these particular documents, that would help, destroy any like little hidden watermarks or whatever. I don't know the exact details, but I think that's why this is degraded, is to protect the source. Now, they would probably only be showing off side-by-sides like this if it was to show the improvements over FSR2, which again is already up and running on consoles. So the idea is this is probably going to output similar or better results to FSR2. Now, this all sounds really cool. Also, it would be really cool if we got a version of FSR that did the same type of thing. And that's what I kind of want to focus on now, because my channel does focus way more on the PC side of hardware than on the console side of hardware. So this is where I'm actually possibly disappointed, but not really surprised. This is something I mentioned earlier. So in a news article I reported on a while back, I talked about an AMD executive hinting at AI-powered upscaling. And I was talking about this videocards.com article, and a lot of other outlets have run with this and have been talking about FSR getting an AI-trained version. And when I talked about this quote, I was very careful to say FSR is nowhere specifically mentioned. And they mention gaming devices, they don't specifically mention Radeon graphics cards. So if we look back at this quote again, where they say, we are enabling our gaming devices to upscale using AI, and 2024 is a really huge development year. When you look at that quote, again, as I pointed out in last time I talked about this, they never specifically said FSR is getting AI upscaling, and they never mentioned Radeon graphics cards. They said gaming devices. So AMD does produce the hardware for the PlayStation 5 gaming device, right? You see what I'm saying here. So unfortunately for the PC gaming space, it is very possible that PSSR is what he was talking about. That would be an AMD hardware, gaming device getting a machine AI, machine learning trained AI upscaler. In other words, this could be what that was talking about. Now, I hope it's not the only thing they were talking about. I really think FSR2, or not FSR2, but FSR needs to have a machine learning accelerated and trained version. And they should leave the old version in place for backwards compatibility with hardware that doesn't have the machine learning acceleration needed. But I really think AMD needs to push this feature, because honestly, it's looking like running games at native resolution is just no longer a thing that game developers and the latest game engines seem particularly focused on. They seem very focused on adjusting resolution for optimization using advanced upscaling technology. So if you don't have access to as good of an upscaler, that is a big downside right now for going with the AMD hardware. So I'm hoping that that's in the works, even if PSSR is not the thing we get for an improvement to FSR. But it will be running on AMD hardware. So if any of this, because AMD produces the SoC for the PS5, so maybe some of this could pay off. I don't know how their deals with Sony go, from an intellectual property standpoint, if they're able to share, that type of stuff. Now, if you put all of the rumored hardware into a chart here, like videocards.com did, this is kind of what we get for the PS5 Pro versus PS5 and Xbox Series X, where you would be getting increase to CPU clocks, but similar cores and threads, as well as significant upgrade to the GPU, going from 36 compute units to 60 compute units. GPU clock staying similar, but you would be getting a huge amount more GPU compute power due to all those increased compute units. Memory configuration rumored to be similar, but with increased memory bandwidth due to increased memory speed. Again, all of this is rumored. So everything we're doing here, again, is rumored, leaked information coming from the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel. So again, it'll be cool to see how or if all of this does play out. But I thought that would be a very interesting topic for today's video. Hopefully you found it useful and interesting. I'll throw in a few last notes for today's news video. NVIDIA is enhancing more games with DLSS 3.5 upscaling, that's the ray reconstruction piece of it, as well as other games getting what they're calling full ray tracing, which would be similar to what a lot of times is called path tracing. It's basically where almost all of the lighting and shadows and reflections and everything are all getting handled through ray tracing. And it looks like it's coming to Black Myth Wukong, Naraka Bladepoint, and Portal with RTX. Now, Portal with RTX already was path traced, but it did not have DLSS 3.5 ray reconstruction. So it's looking like that's the piece that's getting added to Portal with RTX. And the upcoming Star Wars Outlaws has been reported now as having DLSS 3 frame generation and will have some ray tracing features when the game launches. So there's all my sources will be linked in the video description today, so you can definitely take a look at those. And if you want to get into more of the details on all of this, there's a huge NVIDIA post about all of this, including videos showing off those technologies on versus off and all of that. So definitely take a look if you're interested. Also, in the PC gaming space, note that Steam is on its spring sale, and there's a bunch of games you may care about on sale, including Diablo 4, Palworld, Hogwarts Legacy, and more. This is a WCCFtech.com article that shows the % discount on a whole bunch of the most popular games that are currently on the sale. So you could kind of take a look at those. But again, there are other games on sale for sure. These are just kind of some standouts. So if you haven't picked out some of these games, like I said, I recently got Lies of P, and I've been playing it on my Steam Deck. Not only does it run great on the Steam Deck, but it's one of the best, probably the best Souls-like I've played. So for the non-actually FromSoft developed Souls-like games, Lies of P for me so far, I haven't beat it yet though, has been the closest to being feeling like an actual From Software title. It really captures a lot of that feel, more so than a lot of the other ones I've played. A lot of these other ones also look very interesting, so definitely take a look if there's anything interesting there. Although, if you're interested in picking up the new Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection on PC, beware of the fact that apparently it just launched with only 3 64-player PC servers. Now, this article was a day ago, so hopefully it's been fixed. I haven't seen any info yet that it has been, but hopefully it gets fixed soon, because, you might want more than 3 64-player servers to be up and running in a game that is primarily interesting for its multiplayer. Anyway, did they just not expect anyone to buy the game? I don't know. But I'll leave you with that. Again, hopefully you guys found the video useful and or interesting. Huge thank you to viewers, subscribers, commenters, and especially channel members who have clicked the join button. If you click subscribe, it then becomes, now you could join. If you join, you get member badges in the comments section. You get early access to some videos. You do get some exclusive videos. I don't do a lot of them because I like to put most of my content out for everybody. But if there's stuff I want to talk about behind the scenes, things like that I don't think makes sense for a full channel video, get some exclusives. And just also, you fund the channel, which is awesome. Definitely appreciate that. Huge thank you. Totally understand not everybody's in a position to do that. And I hope all of you have an excellent day.